About consolidation of the county's 3 911 dispatch systems into one. Our Chase Campbell talked to Marietta's mayor about what consolidation would mean for the city.
The City of Marietta operates one of the county's 3 public safety answering points, or PSAPS, with the other 2 run by the City of Belpre and the county. Officials say the initial motivation for potential 911 consolidation was the fact that dispatchers often had to make frequent transfers between different agencies to connect callers with the right emergency response, eating up precious seconds. New geofencing technology in the next generation 911 system has largely eliminated that transfer issue, but Schlicker says reducing transfers isn't the only issue consolidation could address.
We are going to gain dispatchers. So right now we have one dispatcher, sitting desk. If they're off, sometimes we have to pull in an officer to sit desk. We would rather not do that. We'd rather have our officers out in the field.
Schlicker also says a recent $145,000 appropriation from the county commissioners to Marietta's 911 operation will ease some of those operational and staffing issues without consolidation.
It's going to be a relief. We can actually hire some dispatchers now to help with the situation and have a dispatcher, a main dispatcher, and then have a secondary dispatcher during peak hours. And I think that will really help us with our workload and just, dispatchers aren't burnt out.
Schlicker says the commission is also putting $40,000 toward Belpre's 911 operations. In the long term, Schlicker says consolidation could increase efficiency and save money. But for the time being, he says the existing 3 PSAP setup is more than adequate in ensuring Washington Countyans have prompt and reliable emergency response wherever they call from in the county. In Marietta, Chase Campbell, WTAP News.
The 4th of July is a time for families to spend